In the city of Jericho, there lived a man named Zacchaeus. Now, Zacchaeus was not just any man. He was a tax collector, and not just any tax collector, but the chief tax collector. That meant he was in charge of collecting money from the people for the Roman government. The problem? Tax collectors were not very popular. Many of them took extra money for themselves, and Zacchaeus was no different. He had become very rich by taking more than he should. People didn't trust him, and they certainly didn't like him. Zacchaeus often walked through the streets of Jericho, but people would turn away, whispering behind his back. He had all the money he could want, but deep down he felt empty. No amount of wealth could buy him the respect or happiness he longed for. A group of people talking excitedly. Zacchaeus overhears. One day, news spread through Jericho. Jesus was coming. People had heard amazing stories about Jesus. He healed the sick, made blind people see, and even calmed storms. But most importantly, Jesus showed love to everyone, even those that others didn't like. Zacchaeus had never met Jesus, but something inside him knew he had to see this man. Maybe, just maybe, Jesus could change his life. Maybe Jesus would see him differently than everyone else did. The camera shows a large crowd gathering as Zacchaeus tries to see, but is too short. There was just one problem. Zacchaeus was a very short man. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't see over the crowd. He jumped, stretched, and even tried to squeeze through, but nobody wanted to make room for a tax collector. He watched as people gathered along the road, excited and eager to see Jesus. He could hear their voices filled with anticipation. Frustration filled his heart. How could he get close enough to see Jesus for himself? Then Zacchaeus had an idea. He looked ahead and saw a tall sycamore tree by the road. If he climbed it, he would have the perfect view. Zacchaeus climbs the tree and watches as Jesus walks toward him. So up the tree he went, higher and higher until he could see everything. And just in time, Jesus was walking by, surrounded by a large crowd. People were reaching out to him, calling his name. But then something unexpected happened. Jesus stopped. He looked up right into the tree, right at Zacchaeus. With a kind smile, Jesus called out, "Zacchaeus, hurry and come down. I must stay at your house today." Zacchaeus' eyes widened. Jesus knew his name, and he wanted to visit his house. Nobody ever wanted to spend time with Zacchaeus. Excited and overjoyed, Zacchaeus scrambled down the tree as fast as he could. This was the most amazing day of his life. He rushed ahead to prepare his home for the honored guest. The crowd murmurs, looking displeased. But not everyone was happy. The people whispered among themselves, "Why would Jesus go to the house of a sinner?" To them, Zacchaeus was a bad man. He had stolen from them. How could Jesus spend time with someone like that? As Jesus and Zacchaeus walked to his home, Zacchaeus could feel the stares and hear the murmuring, but he didn't care. Something about Jesus made him feel hopeful. Zacchaeus stands in his home, looking thoughtful. Then he turns to Jesus with determination. But something amazing was happening in Zacchaeus' heart. Just being with Jesus filled him with joy, but it also made him realize something. He had been living the wrong way. He didn't want to be that man anymore. Zacchaeus stood up and said, "Lord, I will give half of my money to the poor, and if I have cheated anyone, I will pay them back 4 times as much." Jesus smiled and said, "Today salvation has come to this house, for the Son of Man came to seek and save the lost." Zacchaeus joyfully giving money back to the people. The crowd looks amazed, then begins to smile. Zacchaeus had been lost, but Jesus found him. And when he met Jesus, he changed. Not because Jesus forced him, but because love and kindness transformed his heart. He no longer cared about wealth or power. He cared about doing what was right. He gave back to the people he had wronged and helped those in need. And that's what Jesus does. He sees us, knows our name, and loves us no matter what. And when we accept his love, it changes us from the inside out. So what can we learn from Zacchaeus? It doesn't matter where you've been or what you've done. Jesus is always ready to welcome you with open arms. All we have to do is open our hearts to him. And just like Zacchaeus, when we experience Jesus' love, we can't help but share it with others.